Thank you again to the Lipton for hosting, and just the video shiurim I'm posting Leilui Nishmas Estehr Bas Yehuda, who's the mother of a student from school who suddenly passed away a couple of weeks ago, and her daughter is one of the people who watches the shiurim online. Is somebody who has a close connection with us, and she asked if we can make the shiurim Leilui Nishmasa, so I'm certainly doing so. And also, for a Fush Lema, there was, I don't know if everyone heard the news today, but it was a very difficult day here in Eretz Yisrael. A number of attacks, a number of people are in the hospital, and we need Yeshua. It's coming up Rosh Chodesh Adar tomorrow night. So I just want to make mention of a very quick thing. We're starting the halachos of Pesach now. The halachos of Pesach this year already affected Adar because we know that we already passed Yud Daled and Tesvav Adar Aleph. And Chazal tell us the reason that we have Purim and Adar Bet, as for why there's two Adars as opposed to any other month, we're not going to get into that now, but why is Purim and Adar Bet? Don't we always try to make things earlier? It's a simcha, we should try to make it as early as we can. So why not do another Aleph? So Chazal say, Lahasmich Geula LeGeula, in order to put together the two Geulos, the Geula of Purim and the Geula of Pesach. So that's it. This man that we're walking into now, Mirz Hashem, tomorrow night is Rosh Chodesh Adar, Mishnich L'Sadar, Marbim B'Simcha. The other Aleph is a big question whether it applies or doesn't apply, but other Sheni, there's no question about it. And Mirz Hashem, we should be walking into the months of Geula. But for some of us, before we get to the stage of Geula, there's a lot of work to be done. So that's what we want to get together and speak about over here, which is getting ready for Pesach, preparing ourselves for Pesach. And it's just over a month right now before, but it's never too early to talk about Pesach cleaning, and so that's what we're going to start with now. So the way we're working this is going to be two shiurim now, this week and next week. Mirz Hashem, if everything goes smoothly, and next week we'll go back to Monday night, and these two shiurim will be on Pesach. Pesach cleaning and getting ready. Then we're going to do 1 week on Hilchos Purim, because that'll be the week of Purim. And then we're going to go back to the last couple of weeks before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. We'll go back to Hilchos Pesach and hopefully finish it up. And then from Rosh Chodesh on, I'll be traveling at first, and then I doubt there'll be sure, right before Pesach. Okay, so I want to talk about Pesach cleaning. This idea that we have of people that spend a lot of time in these weeks now leading up to Pesach. Some people start much earlier even, getting the house ready and cleaning for Pesach and getting ready. And I want to just get clear what Pesach cleaning is, what Pesach cleaning isn't, what's required in halacha, and what's extra, what is all the halacha based on, and hopefully we'll come out of this with a clarity. And this is one of these areas that all the poskim write about this. This is one of these areas Yisrael Kadoshim Heim, and we're full of very holy minhagim. This is one area in particular that people take it to a very far degree, and people take Pesach cleaning sometimes to extremes. And I'm not here to tell anybody not to do that if that's what they do and it works for them, etc., or that's their family minhag. But it's very important to know what the halachos are. As well, what's actually required and what's not. And then where the extras come in, so maybe we'll address them along the way as we get there. But I really want to try to understand carefully what these halachos are based on and give over what I hope is a very clear and what I hope easy way to prepare for Pesach. And again, anything overboard that a person wants to do and do spring cleaning and get the house ready and scrub and feel like you're cleaning out your neshama as you clean out your basement. So that's great. But you have to just know at least what the halacha is and what's required in the halacha and what's not. So I want to just give a basic overview, a basic introduction to the idea, the concepts, the halachos of chametz on Pesach. What is it that we are cleaning for? What is it that we're worried about? What's going on? And then hopefully based on that we'll understand as it goes where the cleaning comes in and how it works. So we're going to start. We have the sheet over here. This the first half of this page. The first 3/4 of this page is basically just like an introduction to understanding the halachos of chametz on Pesach and what we are required to do about it. So there are 3 mitzvos in the Torah that revolve around chametz on Pesach. Right? We know the mitzvah of Pesach, the yontif of Pesach has many mitzvos associated with it. Certainly in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, Mirz Hashem B'mehir V'yameinu will have it back. And we'll have the Carbon Pesach, which is one of the most important mitzvahs in the Torah. We know this because only 2 mitzvahs in the Torah, Carbon Pesach and Bris Milah, These are the only two mitzvos that if a person doesn't do those mitzvos, they are chayiv kares. Right? Kares is one of the worst spiritual punishments that a person can get. A person eating on Yom Kippur, gets kares. A person who does malacha on Shabbos, gets kares. Very serious things. But there's only two mitzvos that if a person doesn't do them, they get kares. One of them is bris milah because of how central that is to Judaism, and secondly is Korban Pesach because the whole idea of Pesach, the whole Yom Tif and everything associated with it is something that's very fundamental to our emunah. And the Ramban explains this at the end of Parshas Bo. It's a very famous Ramban. When the Ramban says, why is it that we find all the mitzvahs as Zeicher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, right? We say Kiddush, every Yom Tif, we say Zeicher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. So many things are Zeicher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. He says, why is that? He says because Mitzrayim was the time that not only when the Jewish nation was born and we were, released from Mitzrayim, but it was the time that Hashem showed the world his shlita, his rulership over nature, with all of the makos and with the splitting of the sea. This was the time that Hashem showed his dominion over nature and that he intercedes when he wants to. And that's so fundamental to our emunah that the Ramban says that a person who doesn't believe this, a person who doesn't accept this idea that Hashem is controlling nature and controlling everything, and he says, there's small miracles and big miracles, but it's all from Hashem. He says, Ein lo chelek b'Torahs Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, a person who doesn't accept this doesn't have a portion in the Torah of Moshe. That's not the Lashon of the Ramban. He says, therefore, there's so many mitzvos associated with Pesach, and so much strictness that comes to Pesach, like we see with the Korban Pesach, and like we see when it comes to chametz, how extreme we have to go to make sure that we don't encounter or eat chametz. As the Ramban says, it's all not just stam, and not just chas rom to make us crazy, but it's to instill within us in a very, very strong way the centrality that Pesach plays in our philosophy, not just in the halacha. So that's how the Ramban says it. And then, with that understanding, we see why Pesach is that yontif, more than any other yontif that people really take, more to extremes. When it comes to sukkahs, you don't find people, you find some men that go, to extremes looking for the arba minim, but not nearly to the extent, building sukkahs and all these types of things, not nearly to the extent that people go when it comes to chametz and getting ready and cleaning and painting walls and lining everything, all these things people go. But, again, not that we have to do those things, but there's something to it here that Pesach, has with it a tremendous amount of strictness to it. So again, that's the one mitzvah of Korban Pesach, which Meretz Hashem will have this year. But then we know there's other mitzvahs of matzah and maror, the mitzvah of sipur yetzias Mitzrayim. All of these mitzvahs come up. But when it comes to the mitzvah of chametz and the averos of chametz, there's three averos that we have in the Torah. And we say, I have them over here. Number one is called bal yera'eh, that you shouldn't see chametz. The pasuk says, matzos ye'ochel is shivas hayamim. You'll eat matzos for these 7 days. V'lo yira lecha chametz. Don't see chametz. V'lo yira lecha se'or. Don't see leaven b'chol gvulecha in all of your borders. So this is the avera known as bal yera'eh. There's an isser to see chametz. Now Chazal say this isser is not to see a non-Jewish bakery, or to see a guy walking on the street and eating a lafa. That's not the avera. The avera is to see your own chametz, but it's meaning to own chametz, to encounter your own chametz. Number two, there's another avera which is really the same avera. In other words, anytime you're over one of these, really over both of them. It's like two los ases, again, just reinforcing the strictness of that the Torah takes chametz. Not finding your own chametz. This is two. Shivas yamim se'or lo yimatze bevatechem. You can't find it. Ki kola ochel machmesetz v'nichrasa nefesh hahi me'adas Yisrael b'ger ve'ezrach haaretz. Anybody who eats chametz from Klal Yisrael or the Gerim or anybody, they are cut off. They get kares. Again, underscoring the chomer. The seriousness of this. I'll just point out another idea over here. Chazal say in a different context, but there's a few areas in the Torah that you find that the Torah itself set up fences. Usually we're used to the idea, we're learning Hilchos Shabbos, so there's a idea of bishul min haTorah, of cooking, and then Chazal come and they set up all these fences, like shihiyah we were learning about, and all other, you can't put something on the fire even just to warm up a little bit if it may end up cooking. All of these things are fences that are set up by Chazal. But there's a couple of areas that the Torah takes so seriously that the Torah itself set up fences, and meaning that that the central avera here is eating chametz. But now it's so severe to eat chametz that the Torah tells you min haTorah d'oraisa, not that the Rabbanan came and said, you know what, folks, we're trying to protect you over here, so don't even own chametz. The Torah itself, in two los ases, two lavim in the Torah, tells you make sure you don't own chametz. Another area where this comes up is when it comes to arayos. The lashon there is lo sikrivu legalos erva. don't even draw near to erva. So there we know that it's not just the act of Gili Arayos that's aser, but this is where negia comes in and all sorts of any form of kirva. That's also the Torah itself takes this area so seriously that the Torah itself sets up walls around it and sets up fences. That's what we have over here. Eating chametz is aser, but around that we have not owning chametz in two los ases. Further to that, we have number 3. Now this is a positive commandment, the mitzvahs asay min haTorah, that every person is required to do, and we're going to talk about this. We fulfill this mitzvah min haTorah erev Pesach morning, when you go to burn your chametz in the morning. We'll get there Meretz Hashem in the later shiurim, but that's a mitzvah asay. There's a mitzvah min haTorah to go ahead and destroy your chametz. Let's just read the pasuk inside. Shivas yamim matzos tochelu. For 7 days you're going to eat matzah. Ach b'yom harishon tashbisu seor mebateichem. But for the first day you have to destroy any leaven from your homes. Ki kol ochel chametz again v'nichras hanefesh Yisrael b'yom harishon ad yom hashvi. Because anybody who eats chametz during this time gets cut off. So again, the Torah reinforcing this very strongly tells us this. Not only you can't own it in this, but you have mitzvahs asay min haTorah to go ahead and destroy it, to remove any chametz. And this again, we do this erev Pesach morning when we burn our chametz. It's a mitzvah min haTorah that we do. Okay. Now, in addition to this, Chazal do step in and create for us. In this case, it's not really fences, but they created two mitzvos that we have to go ahead and do that revolve around these 3 mitzvos min haTorah. Number 1 is the mitzvah of bedikas chametz. In other words, a person is required by law to go ahead and seek out their chametz. It's not enough just for a person to go into Pesach and say, you know what, I'm pretty sure that I don't have any chametz around, and I got rid of it. A person is required to go out and find their chametz and get rid of it. We'll explain why more in a moment. And number 2, and this is also something that we do on Erev Pesach in 2 stages, one stage at night and the next stage the next morning. But we also have to do something called bittul chametz, which is nullifying our ownership, relinquishing our ownership, declaring our chametz to be hefker, completely ownerless and no longer connected to me. So just want to understand what these 2 mitzvahs do, because they kind of work in tandem, and based on this we're going to understand where our responsibility or the requirement to clean comes from. Chazal were again so concerned with us on chametz, on Pesach eating chametz, that they said 2 things. Number 1, we have to destroy our chametz. That's before they even said it. That's the Torah says we have to destroy any chametz. So that we do, right? Erev Pesach morning this year, Meretz Hashem, Erev Shabbos coming up in a few weeks, several weeks. Right, we're going to go and we're going to throw our chametz in the fire. So why isn't that enough? I did it. I burned my chametz, and I'm fairly confident I have no chametz at home. So Chazal said, well, we're worried because it could be over Pesach. If you don't do the bedika, right, and you don't do the bittul, it could be over Pesach. You're going to, open up a drawer and you'll find, a donut in there. You'll find a Cheerio, or you'll find a granola bar, or something that you're used to eating during the year. And because these are the types of things that we, chametz, we're so used to it. Bread is something that's eaten so normally, and chametz is eaten so normally. So Chazal was worried that it's possible that you're going to have something left over in your house that you didn't destroy, and you're going to end up eating it on Pesach. Right? So they required us, on the one hand, to do bedikas chametz, that it's not enough just to destroy what we know about, but we have to actively go out and find any chametz on our property. In other words, any chametz that we can potentially encounter on Pesach, we have to look for, because we don't want that scenario to arise. And I'm sitting at the table and I open up a drawer at the table, and there's a candy in there, and I eat the candy and go, oh my goodness, it's Pesach, what did I just do? So Chazal required that I open up that drawer before Pesach to make sure that there's no candies in there, that there's nothing that I'm going to nothing I'm going to find. In addition to this, Chazal was worried that even if I do the bedika, even if I do search out my all my property and all my things, and I make sure that I don't have anything, but what if I miss something? What if there's something there that I don't know about? So because of this, we do this other mitzvah of bittul chametz. What we're going to do again, Erev Pesach, when we declare our chametz ownerless, that's just in case I missed something in my search. If I, my seek and destroy mission, if I missed a piece of chametz, so now at least I won't be in violation of Bal Yira and Bal Yimatzeh. I won't be in violation of owning that chametz on Pesach. Even though I'm still susceptible to potentially eating it. In other words, if I searched that drawer and I picked up things and there was something stuck to the bottom of a venture and I didn't see it and I put it back down and I didn't seal off that drawer for Pesach, so if I do bittul, I'm not going to be in violation by having it there. But if I find it on Pesach, I'm going to have to obviously destroy it, because I'm not allowed to own it. I'm not allowed to potentially come to eat it. Okay, so based on these mitzvos, Chazal are confident that we can walk into Pesach without A, owning any chametz, right, because we've done the bittul, and B, without accidentally encountering and eating any chametz because we've done the bedika, we've searched, and we've done the biur, we've done the destruction of the chametz before Pesach. Okay, now that's it. Now we're fine to enter Pesach. So the question is, where does cleaning come into the picture? Right? Cleaning wasn't mentioned here, at all. So let's just take a look, because cleaning comes up in the Shulchan Aruch, in one place over here. And I changed the font, I guess, so it changed some characters. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's just take a look now where it says, so where does cleaning come in? So the Shulchan Aruch says, "Hamachabe chedro b'yudgimo b'nisan u'machabe livdok hachametz ulvaro v'nizer lo lahachnis od chametz afal pichein tzarich livdok b'lil yudalid." So the Shulchan Aruch says that a person who cleaned a room and checked it, but didn't check it doing the mitzvah of the bedika, which we'll explain this later. This is not the point of this now. So then he has to go ahead and do the bedika on the night of Yodalit. Okay, again, that halacha we're going to get to later. That's not what I want to address. So look at that now. It continues Haggah. That means that this is now the Ramah speaking, Rav Moshe Isserlis. This is usually the Ramah is coming to give the Ashkenaz version of the halacha, the Ashkenaz psak. As opposed to Yosef Karo, the Shulchan Aruch, who gave the Sephardi psak, but over here he's saying something that's universal. And what does he write? V'chol adam tzarich lechabed chadarav kodem habedika. Every person has to clean his rooms before the bedika happens. So what does that mean? So the Mishnah Berurah here explains that it's not realistic to show up the night before Pesach, right? The night of Yudalit, the night right before Pesach, and to now take my candle and my feather and say, okay, I'm going to go now and find and gather together so I can destroy all the chametz in my house if I haven't touched my house until then, right? It's just not realistic to do that. It'll take me all night. It'll take as long as it takes to do Pesach cleaning, it'll take to do. So the Ramah writes, so it's a good idea. You have to go ahead and clean your house before the bedika in order to get your house ready so that the bedika can be done realistically in one night, and then you're not starting from scratch. Okay, this is Pesach cleaning in halacha. So that means that Pesach cleaning is an act of getting you, I don't want to say just, because that would minimize it, right? But it's just getting us ready for the bedika, which means that the quote-unquote halachos of Pesach cleaning, of which there don't exist any, are really the halachos of the bedika. Right? In other words, the places that we need to do bedikas chametz, those are the places I'm going to need to clean. The things that I'm looking for in bedikas chametz, those are the things I'm going to need to be cleaning for. Right? But any place that the bedika doesn't apply to, of which there are many, and any food or item that the bedika doesn't apply to, like crumbs, which we'll see, right? Crumbs are not a problem of owning on Pesach. So then there's really no aspect of Pesach cleaning. Right? Pesach cleaning is just what's going to get me ready for the bedika. Okay, so what we're going to now do, we're not going to learn the halachos of the bedika, because we're going to put that later in the classes when it gets closer to the time to actually learn the halachos about that night, about what we do, about getting ready for the bedika and the candle and the brachos and all those things. We're not going to do that now, but we're going to learn about the halachos of what bedikas chametz requires in order to infer from that what we need to do in order to get ready to clean. Okay, any questions? I'm going to take a sip anyway. Okay. In class, I have a coffee and it gets cold. So I try to get questions or comments so I can, get my coffee going. Okay. So what we're going to address first on the first we're going to address the areas that require a bedika. Then we're going to address what are we looking for, what types of chametz are we not looking for, and then hopefully we'll get to all of this. We have a list of practical applications of now that we know what we're looking for and where. How does this translate into the kitchen, into the living room, into bedrooms, toys, etc.? And again, hopefully, so that we have clarity on what we're doing for Pesach cleaning, which people may be getting started with now. Okay, so the halacha of the bedika is as follows: any property that I own that possibly had chametz come into it over the course of the year, that I'm going to be owning on Pesach, which is an important point because something that I'm not going to own and not going to go on a Pesach, and we don't have to do bedika, which we'll talk about. But any property that I own, that I'm going to own on Pesach, that has any chance of chametz having been there throughout the year, that is an area that is required to do bedika. And the post can point out, the Ramah writes this, when it comes, even the pockets of clothing, he says. So we see from there, in addition to just obviously the pockets, which we'll talk about in a second, but that means like everywhere. It doesn't just mean like in a global way that I have to look around the room and see. It means, again, because the whole idea of this is anywhere that my hand may end up on Pesach and may end up finding a candy and finding something, that's an area that the bedika has to get done, including a car, including an office, including if a person has any sort of property outside that they do anything else, they have to go there. A person, even if they don't own their office, but they have a cubicle at work, but they have drawers that belong to them, anything along those lines. Again, if a person is going to be there on Pesach, if not, then we have the option of selling it, which we'll talk about, right? Any area that you're not going to be using, and any clothing, let's say, that you're not planning on using for Pesach, also. So you have the option of selling that, which we'll get to. But we're addressing now any area that's going to be used over Pesach has to be addressed. Okay, now what about difficult to reach places? What about when it comes to behind the oven or moving furniture around and things like this? So again, we have to just realize what it is that we're talking about. If there's just crumbs back there, so Chazal say the following. Chazal say the crumbs, when it comes to little bits of chametz that no person would eat, lo chashivi ubatli. They're considered not chashuv, they have no inherent value to them, and they're batal on their own, they're like hefker. In other words, a person does not claim ownership of the crumbs, even the crumbs in their house. And as a person would come in and pick up crumbs, you couldn't say to them, give those back to me, that's gezel. It doesn't belong to anybody. They're automatically made hefker. Now that works in our favor when it comes to Pesach, because that means that crumbs around the house are not a problem. That's not what it's not what we're looking for. If the house is dirty with crumbs, that's still not a problem at Pesach. The problem is that we may come to eat those crumbs if they're in a place that they could get eaten, right? So crumbs, let's say, in the corners of a floor. Let's say a person has to do an emergency cleaning. They didn't think they were going to be home, and then they realized the day before Yantif that, oh my gosh, I have to be home. So what's their hierarchy? So the floors are not even they're not on the list at all. There's no halacha that you have to clean the floors. That would mean that anything that would fall on the floor on Pesach you would have to clean off. You wouldn't be allowed to eat it, etc. Because maybe there's a crumb there, but there's no isser of owning crumbs on Pesach. Okay, you're not doing a bedika for crumbs. We're not. There's one exception, which I would just say, and then I'll take questions. If in one kli, in one utensil, which some poskim say a car counts as, and then if there's a kazayis of crumbs in one kli, which you could definitely have in a car, crumbs and stuff like that, then that already is an issue. Midrabanan of Bal Yira Bal Yamatzeh, because there's already a chashuv amount of crumbs in one place, even though nobody would eat them, but that's already like too much to ignore. So the only place you could really have it, in the olden days they used to talk about kalim, like old pottery that had all sorts of cracks and all sorts of stuff in it. As they'd say, no, you don't need to get rid of that on Pesach. It's fine. You can't use it obviously, but you don't need to sell it. But if within all of those bits of dough it comes together as a kazayis, so then you have to get rid of it. So the only place really that applies in a room, it doesn't apply. In other words, it doesn't matter if it's scattered out in a room and behind this couch and behind that thing. Maybe on a couch, maybe in one couch, if behind the sofas you've got 30 Cheerios, you have to take out the Gazayas book and see how many Cheerios it is. But the idea is, again, I just want to make this clear, that the idea is that crumbs are not usher to own on Pesach, they're usher to eat on Pesach. So any crumb that's in an area that's going to touch food or have what to do with food, and certainly in your pockets, right? There's no question crumbs in your pockets are a problem, because we put our hands in our pockets on Pesach, and you're going to touch crumbs and you're going to touch food. It's like, that's a real thing. That's not, one crumb you're not allowed to eat on Pesach. So anything that has crumbs that are going to be eaten, but again, if, in the floor or outside or here, different places like that, or let's say deep under the car seats, whatever you vacuumed, you got whatever you can get to, and you see that there's some schmutz there and some crumbs, and it's not coming out of the carpet, that's not an avera. But again, you just have to make sure that if your kid's candy falls under the car seat on Pesach, that don't eat it, don't leave it there. Okay, now I got sidetracked in the middle. I was just talking about hard to reach places. That's why I got onto crumbs. So what's the story? So a hard to reach place that you're for sure not going to get to on Pesach, even though physically you could, you don't have to clean there. The way the poskim say is, if 10 shekel rolled back there, would you move it? You know what I mean? Would you move the fridge if 10 shekel rolled back there? As most people say, oh, wait till Pesach cleaning, right? But if it happened on Pesach, would you move something for 10 shekels? So if it's a couch, maybe somebody would. Couch is not such a big deal to slide it out. But let's say it's an oven and there's pipes and wires and a whole, and you never move it. It's like not since you moved in, it's been sitting there and you never move move it, so then you're not required to move it, because any chametz that's back there, you're going to nullify. It'll be batel, right? As when you nullify it, it's going to be gone.
Even more than a kazayis.
Even if it's more than a kazayis, because it's you're not gonna have access to it. You're not gonna encounter it. The case in Chazal is if there are places that like between you and your neighbor, you have a shared wall and there's like a hole in between, and you can't reach it and your neighbor can't reach it. So then the Gemara says that it's you just mevatel it and it's batal because you're not going to access it ever on Pesach. That's okay. You had a question though, sorry.
Yes. One of the things that I'm always worried about right before Pesach is emptying out the vacuum cleaner.
Yes, very chashuv. Yes. We were caught with that one year. Yes.
But that's not crumbs that I'm gonna.
Yeah, but it could be a kazayis in one place. Yeah, the vacuum cleaner is a very good example. Thank you. That's
okay.
Yes, you should definitely. We try to remember to burn it. We try to remember to burn the vacuum cleaner bag with the chametz. It's a good idea, but that's a very good thing to remember because that is very feasible. Yeah, there could be whole Cheerios that are sucked up in there, and.
But if you empty it like the day before and you just did a little vacuuming. It's not so much
I don't think it'd be mechuyev to. I don't think so. But then again, you just have to be careful. Something like that, we have that brush or the vacuum or whatever. The crumbs could get caught there. You have to be very careful using it on Pesach, that type of thing. Because you're going to push it on the floor. And I'm not one of these people that are very extreme about really anything so much, but and also not about chametz. But a lot of these things are like very realistic. A vacuum cleaner that sheds a few crumbs. Things can happen. I would not use the same vacuum cleaner bag or whatever on Pesach that I was using during the year with crumbs. The whole vacuum cleaner itself is you have to clean it very well. Or not let it come around the table. Let's say the same thing with books. I'm getting a little ahead because it's like in the examples. All right, so we'll wait till we get to the examples.
Again, going back to the vacuum cleaner for a second. If you're not using it on any place that you're eating, like for example, my rugs are only upstairs. We don't eat upstairs. So that's not a reason for me to not use my vacuum cleaner.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Okay. It would only be an issue of food and encountering food, right? So if your kids don't have candies up there, they don't have anything, and it wouldn't be, then that would not be an issue. Okay. So now let's say what are we looking for? So I guess we moved over into this. So again, we're not looking for crumbs. Crumbs are not the issue. We're looking for real things. We're looking for like real food, for Cheerios, for the pretzel, for a bag of food, or a container, or a package, or a candy bar. Those are the things that we're really looking for. Products that we have that are potentially chametz stick, which I have a list of things which I'll give you now also. But these are all these are things that we really are looking for. And again, it's like one of these areas where people get they'll focus more on the crumbs and the cleaning and the scrubbing and all of this, and overlook in their car trunk, and there's like a box of cereal that fell down in the side of the wheel well, and I know somebody who found a box of cereal in their trunk on Pesach. And they just didn't think, they forgot to look there. Groceries, had a bag of groceries there, who knows when, the small box fell out, and there was, they found it on Yantif, on Chol Hamoed. So you definitely have to make sure that you're, checking the main places and looking for the things that need to be looked for, and not getting sidetracked.
Medicines.
Oh, so we'll get there. I have a sheet about medicines and those types of things, which so I'll give that out right now. Actually, so what I have here, this is just the best one that I found in English, but this comes from Chicago, from the CRC, which is like the Beis Din in Chicago, but it's signed by a number of Rebbeim who are Rebbeim of mine, Rabbi Shmuel First and Rabbi Zucker, who is my Rosh Kol in Chicago, and this is just the best. I think this is not like that. This is just their opinion. I think this is basically the consensus of the poskim nowadays. This is just the best English version of it that I was able to find online. So I want to just go through this with you as far as the products are concerned. And again, this is available. You can find this online if you type up like CRC chametz products or cosmetics or something. So you'll find this page. It's from a number of years ago, but it's still up to date. In general, I don't know if we need to read it together. You could read it on your own, but in general, the idea is like this: pill medication, anything that you're taking and swallowing that's not meant to be chewed and not meant to be eaten, meaning for an adult to be swallowed, even if there's a coating on it, like an Advil or something that's sweet. So that's mutter to take. You don't have to check. It doesn't have to be on a list. It doesn't have to be in a thing. Any pill that a person is just taking regularly. Again, there are poskim who disagree. I'm going with this angle. For many years when I was growing up, every Pesach we used the Rabbi Blumenkrantz list. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, right? With looking up this medication, that medication, asking questions, and this and that. And in my later years, I don't use it at all. And I'm saying any pills that are taken this way are okay. Anything that's liquid or chewable definitely has to be checked out. Once it's something that's edible, that's already a shaila of eating something. There's questions of kashrus, there's questions of, but certainly questions of chametz, and that's something that has to be looked into. When it comes to kitnius, which is something that is not real chametz, but for Ashkenazim that we are noheg to forbid. So kitnius is permissible for refuah purposes. So if it's something that would only have kitnius in it, that would be permissible. But okay, this is something once it gets into this area of being problematic, you should really ask a shaila. If it's edible and it doesn't have a proper kosher Pesach hechsher. When it comes to cosmetics, this is the list that I give out to my students. Also, any type of blush, body soap, conditioners, creams, eyeshadow, eyeliner, face powder, foot powder, foundations, ink, lotions, mascara, nail polish, ointments, paint, shampoo, stick deodorant are all permitted for use on Pesach, and you don't have to find them on a list. Anything is fine. But liquid deodorants, hair mousse, hairsprays, perfumes, colognes, and shaving lotions have denatured alcohol. This is interesting. Rav Moshe Feinstein held, and this is like what the post can go with, is that even though you couldn't drink it as it is, you couldn't take this perfume and drink it, but he said, it was well known that during the Prohibition in America, people used to distill perfumes into alcohol. They used to, distill things to get the alcohol out of them. So he says anything that the alcohol you can constitute to get out of it, is also to use on Pesach.
But if your dog drink your perfume, he would be sick. And
right,
never do it again,
but you can get the alcohol out of it easily. Just by boiling it up, you can get out the alcohol. That's what Moshe said. So it's not considered to be
like in the form that it is. It's not chametz,
but it's easily right. It's easily exactly. That's what he said. And people do it. People. I mean, I don't know if anymore, but people did it. So that's what the poskim still say when it comes to liquid things that are technically able to be turned into a drink. So then you have to be much more careful with them. When it comes to lipstick, anything that goes onto your mouth or in your mouth, toothpaste or anything like that, so then you should really check and make sure that it's on a list. But this is, this is a lot more lenient than what I remember growing up with all sorts of lists and things and checking things and having to buy special deodorant for Pesach and all these things. So I don't do that anymore. But you do have to make sure to check. A lot of people do have things that do fall into these categories, and you have to make sure. Yes,
you
even
have to sell those things. You're saying not just not use them. You actually have to sell them.
Most of the things, yeah, right. It could be certain things. The idea is that if it's something that is not edible even to a dog, then you wouldn't even have to sell it. But if it's something that's
the list of these.
I think you should sell them if they're things that actually have chametz in them and they don't appear on those chametz lists, then it's better to put them away for Pesach and not have them at all. Okay, so this is as far as where to look and what we're looking for. I just want to mention one exclusion, which we're going to develop a little bit more next week, or maybe also when it gets closer. People who are not home for Pesach, or is anybody here going to be away for Yantif? And this is not the prison. Everyone's home. Oh, Ashreichem, all of you. Okay, that's great. But any area of your house, any room or closet or cabinets, or break front, or anything like that, any area or room of your house that you don't want to have access to, or don't mind not having access to over Pesach. In other words, you're willing to seal it off and close it off for Pesach. So that area you're going to sell to a non-Jew for Pesach, and none of these halachos apply. In other words, you don't have to. That's another thing. When I grew up, I remember we would clean, whole cabinets and break fronts and all these things, and then seal them off, for Pesach. And then I remember when I came back from Israel, I was like, Mom, what are we doing? We didn't need to clean it to begin with, and even if we're selling it, we certainly didn't need to clean it. But any area that you're sealing, and it could just be that you don't want to bother cleaning it. Let's say you have a toy chest or a toy closet, and you don't want to bother cleaning all of that area, so you can seal that off, which we'll talk about more how to later. You could seal off that area, and then none of this applies. You don't have to clean it. You don't have to do a bedika there. You don't have to do anything. And the same thing, if a person is leaving completely for Yom Tov, a person is going away for the Chag, and they're not going to be at home at all, and no one's going to be staying in their home, so then they can sell their whole apartment, their whole home, and then they don't have to do Pesach cleaning or bedika at all. What they just should do, the poskim say, just so that they're not completely giving up, missing out on the mitzvah of the bedika. It's mitzvah we get once a year, a bracha you make once a year. It's a zchus to do it. So the poskim say that even if a person is leaving for Yantif and they're not going to be home, they should sell their house so that they don't have to bother with it. But they should leave out one area. They should leave out don't do the kitchen. But leave out the bed, a bedroom, or leave out the living room. Leave out an area that they're not selling specifically, and that way they could do the bedika there. If they're there the night before, then they do it with a bracha. They do the whole thing properly. If they're leaving earlier, then they'll still do the mitzvah. So that's worthwhile to do if a person is leaving. But that's not, again, it's not a chiyuv to do that. It's just you get the opportunity to do the mitzvah. Okay, so let's look at the practical applications now. It could be some of these things we covered just in talking about the examples, but I wanted just to go through them, one by one to make sure that we're not missing. So when it comes to the kitchen, now we're not talking about kashering. Eretz Hashem will have a class on kashering the kitchen, which is getting it actually ready for use on Pesach, getting the counters ready, getting the stovetop ready, etc. But now we're just talking about cleaning the kitchen. What do I need to clean in order to get ready for Pesach? So again, any cabinets that I'm going to seal up and put away my chametz dishes over there, and so that I don't need to clean, I don't need to do anything, right? If you have cabinets in your kitchen that you're selling to a guy, right? So nothing. No, it's not yours. It belongs to a non-Jew. It's Achmed's for Pesach. It belongs to him. You don't have to touch it. On the contrary, you could put your chametz there, and as the chametz that you're selling, you're going to put in those cabinets. If you sell chametz, you're going to put them into those cabinets that you're going to sell. So you don't have to touch those cabinets at all. Okay. So what are we looking for? We're looking for certainly any products, certainly anything that's real, or any chametz that may be encountering food over Pesach, right? So I'm going to want to clean my kitchen floor very well, not to prevent myself from being over Bali Yera and Bali Matzeh, because I'm not even one Cheerio on the floor is or a broken Cheerio or is not going to be over, but I want to make sure that if something falls on the floor on Pesach, that it's not going to turn into chametz. And certainly any area where I'm going to be using on Pesach for real, like my refrigerator has to be cleaned, super well. That I have to, again, just make sure that there's no grease, there's nothing there that's going to, that it was chametz and touched chametz. Now it's going to touch my food and it's going to end up being eaten on Pesach. But also in your refrigerator, a lot of people do this. We do this at home. You can seal off a shelf of your fridge. You could tape off your fridge shelf or a door or whatever, and close off that area. And then that area doesn't need to be cleaned for Pesach at all, because you're not owning it on Pesach. It's not going to be yours.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Just in terms of the floor and the crumbs. So if you have a baby or little kids at all,
yes,
they can ingest
so
those
you
crumbs.
should be very careful.
Is there a reason to be more makbid for a kid?
Yeah, for kids, if babies crawling around, you should be more careful. First of all, because they get crumbs all over the place. They get crumbs to places that adults
No,
don't.
I know that there's potentially more crumbs.
No,
the question
and also,
is you have to be more careful.
Yeah, you should, because
yes, eat it.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, yes, that little piece of a pretzel or something that's somewhere, they're much more likely to find and to eat on Pesach. Yeah, for sure. You have to be more careful.
Today in the corner. And I sweep every day.
Yeah, they know how to find it.
That's the kitchen now, and then the floor will be clean.
Right. So when it comes to the kitchen floor, so definitely a person should clean it. Now people who clean out the grout and stuff like that between the tiles. Again, you could do that if you want to. There's no halachic basis for that. You don't need to do it because again, what are we talking about? If something falls on the floor on Pesach anyway, you're probably going to wash it. And whether you scrubbed out the grout or not is not, that's not going to make a difference. And is the chance of really chametz really there?
But also, if you're pouring a cleaning product onto your floor, doesn't it?
Right, so it makes it not right for eating. Anyway, that's as I'm saying, you don't have to do that. I'm not even suggesting that you do. But I'm not. But people who do, I'm not telling them not to either. But it's not required. As long as your floor is clean, and certainly if you're using cleaning products and scrubbing the corners and getting into the cracks and all those types of things. So then that's fine. Again, any shelves that you're going to be using for actual dishes or for actual food obviously has to be cleaned, very well into the cracks and everything. And we'll talk about lining and what needs to be lined or not when we talk about kashering. Okay, when it comes to living room and dining room, so what needs to be cleaned in these areas? So it's just looking around the things that you're going to encounter over Pesach. So the chairs certainly have to be cleaned very well. Chairs are things that you're not going to find the kazayis of crumbs, but certainly where the arms meet the legs and these types of things. A chair is something that you have to clean, and that's certainly something that food falls on Pesach, and that so chairs is something to go very, very carefully on and make sure that they're totally clean. But again, if you're talking about a chair and you're going with a toothpick and you just can't get at any, more, but you still see that the stuff there. But you have to ask yourself, how likely is it that this is going to end up being eaten on Pesach? If it's somewhere that, even if something falls there and somebody would pick it up and eat it, they wouldn't encounter that food. And like as Goodwin said, you could always pour a little bit of bleach there, a little bit of ammonia or something that, not at the same time, that's poisonous. Everybody knows that, right? Bleach, ammonia. So then, something like that'll make it not edible. So then that you could do also, but certainly behind couches and moving couch pillows and vacuuming, and if you've got a couch cover to take that off, all these types of things where you're over the course of a year, even if you're cleaning with stuff falls and people kids put things in that, you have to be careful about. Now when it comes to a break front or something like that, a few things. Now, I'm sorry, what do you call that?
Yeah, it's a break front.
What is that called?
A glass cabinet.
What do you call it in British?
What do you call that?
It's a British term.
Cabinet. A glass cabinet.
Yeah.
Glass cabinet. Okay.
Call it break front because you can break the front.
That's very clever. Is that why it's called?
What?
Okay, so whatever that's called, the glass cabinet. Sorry for
cabinet.
the English people out there.
Yeah.
A show cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay.
You show stuff off in it.
You do? Okay. So let's talk about that the cabinet that you have with the glass, and you have your Kiddush cup behind there, and some people the candlesticks, whatever behind there. Okay, now if you're talking about a cabinet that you're going to be using the stuff in there on Pesach, you're going to put your Pesach Kiddush cup in there and whatever, then obviously it has to be cleaned out just like in the kitchen. You have to make sure that it's totally clean, and even though you don't get crumbs in there and stuff, but stuff certainly goes from the table to the cabinet and the salt shakers and who knows what. You just have to make sure it's cleaned out well. Now, if you've got chametz kalim back there, so the halacha is like this: you don't have to sell kalim that have chametz in them. Meaning that have just the taste of chametz or that are used with chametz. If there's no actual chametz, like we said, if it's not a kazayas of crumbs together, you don't have to sell them, and you can't sell them. If you sell them, then you have to bring them to the mikveh afterwards, whatever. You're not allowed to sell them to a guy, but you're also not allowed to use them on Pesach because you use them during the year. So the halacha is you have to close them off. So if you have a break front, you should, this is what we do at home, or one of these things, we just put like doilies or something on the inside in the glass. It looks pretty, like just things.
What if it's a drawer?
It's the same thing. So just like just
to
you could take it off, or put a sticker, anything.
But you have to
if you could still see it through glass, I think it's really a shaila. I believe it's a shaila in the post game. If it's still visible through glass, the chametz kalim, I think it's better for them not to be visible. I just have it in my head. Melina, I'll look it up for next time. I think it's supposed to be that it's not visible for Pesach.
What if I have drawers that are completely closed?
Yeah, you just have to tape.
Most
you should
years
tape them.
I do hagala on my silverware, like my Shabbos silverware.
Right.
But there are years that I don't, because we're like away for all the meals.
So just seal it
So
off.
but I don't seal it because.
But you should know. You should.
It should be misuman.
It should be definitely misuman. Yeah, it should
Okay.
definitely misuman, and you have to do a bedika in there if you're not selling it. In other words, even if it's misuman, I'm saying there's two things. Let's make this clear. They're selling an area, which then you're not making it misuman. Then you're sealing it off, and you're just making sure everyone in your family knows this area is sold to a non-Jew. That's one thing. Then you don't have to do a bedika. What I'm talking about now in a china cabinet or a break front or whatever you want to call this. So I'm not planning on selling it. Which I could just include it in the sale, and then I don't have to do this. But let's say I'm not planning on selling it. Let's say but I'm not allowed to access those dishes over Pesach, so I have to put something that I can't see them. It's really like the same thing, but one time I'm selling it and it's not mine. The other time it's still belonging to me. I'm just sealing it off so that I'm not going to use it and I can't see it.
But you can own your chametz dishes on Pesach.
Exactly. That's
right.
What I'm saying is the difference. But if you want to sell that cabinet, just to say, but the difference is in that second scenario, you have to do bedika there. That's all I'm trying to say. If I'm not selling the break front, if I'm not selling the actual cabinet, and I'm just putting doilies there to make it that I can't see, then I have to go inside there and do bedika and clean because I'm owning that area and I have to make sure there's no chametz there. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So if any area like that you don't want to have to do bedika, you should just tell your husband when he's selling the chametz to list those areas. Or the different rabbanim have different requirements. Sometimes they make you list the actual areas. Sometimes they just say any area that's marked, whatever it is. But that's the idea. If you're selling it, it's going to be together with the room where your chametz is and the cabinets in the kitchen where your weekday year-long dishes are. So then you don't need to do bedika there. If you're not selling it, then you need to bedika and close it off so that you don't use it. Okay. When it comes to the table, obviously kitchen, the dining room tables have to be looked at very carefully. And if you've got leaves, you have to clean out the leaves and all those things. Any area where food is going to touch, or if you're taking out leaves and moving leaves, anything like that. You have to make sure are taken care of. Okay, and the floor is really the same thing like we said with the kitchen. You have to clean it as well as far as going over the grout. That's really up to you. Okay, now as far as bedrooms are concerned, so now if you're a family that you never ever bring food upstairs and the kids are not allowed and they know they're not allowed and they don't do that and they never do it and they don't put food in their pockets and all these types of things, so ashreichem, it's very impressive. But if there's such a thing, I'm saying there's such a thing as a room that is muchzak, that there's no chametz there. Let's say there's an office in the house and nobody brings food in that room and they're not allowed to bring food in that room. So then if it's clear that nobody actually ever brings food in that room, nobody walks in there with a sandwich. Or the case in the Gemara is, let's say if you have a wine cellar, so nobody eats in the wine cellar. He said, yeah, but somebody might go down to the wine cellar to get wine during a meal, and they're looking for something, and they put their bread down, and then they're looking for it, and then they forget their bread there. That's a very normal circumstance. So any area that you walk in with food, even though you don't eat there, right, but that's an area that already needs a b'dika. So it's only a place that you are certain and confident that the chametz didn't go in, which I don't know if that really exists if you've got kids, but when it comes to bedrooms, you have to check. You have to check, any place, any drawers, any nightstands, any place where you or kids or anybody could put a candy bar, put food, put Cheerios, put anything. Like we said before, the clothing has to be gone through. So I want to just address this now. Like we mentioned, the Ramah says even the pockets have to be gone through. So what does this mean? You have to go through, if the person's got a bunch of kids, they go through every pocket of every kid and every clothing. So only the things that they're going to use on Pesach. Anything that they're not going to use on Pesach, let's say, all of their winter wear, let's say, hopefully it'll be warm by then, all the winter, so that you sell. You put that all in a closet or put that all in, and you sell that area, and then you don't need to check any of that clothing.
Because I for food.
I'm sorry?
It has to be because I for food.
Well,
like turning every pocket and
No. Well, no, because they don't know because In other words, it has to be that you're not gonna. We're not worried about bayiroi bali matzeh over here. We're worried about I may eat it, and anything that is accessible for me to wear on Pesach is conceivable that I may wear and eat. So only clothing that I am for sure not, that I'm putting away, I'm selling it, I'm putting it in a closet, sealing it off for Pesach. So then I don't need to check that because there's no way I'm going to eat it. But any clothing that's open, and so we do this. So we'll take like a sheet and drape it over half of a closet, and put on that area is sold to the guy.
Laundering not enough.
I'm sorry?
If it's been washed, is it enough?
I'm going to ask Rav Weiss about this, like turning out the pockets and laundering. I'd like to ask Rav Weiss about that. Different postscripts have said different things over the years about this. In the past, I was not so makel about this, just because, the metzius is that, pockets keep crumbs in them. They really do. And cuffs of pants, I found in my cuffs. I'm also kazayis. You can find, they really hold stuff, and the fabric holds things, and it's not. So I'm not.
At certain age there might be crumbs, but after a certain age, like kids don't put like regular cookies when they're like 10 years old. They don't stick a cookie in their pocket. They'll stick a candy or a chocolate bar.
I know 40-year-old kids that do that. I don't know. I don't know. But okay. If you're confident and you see your pockets are not like that, so then. If you're sure that they're not going to encounter the chametz, but let me ask Rav Weiss about that in terms of washing and turning the pockets inside out and things like that. If that's sufficient, but I don't know. It scares me a little bit. It just because in the pocket you've got the lining within the pocket also, and
Do you vacuum them?
But just first of all, we put away most of the clothes, and we only keep out the things that they're going to use, and we just really turn it inside out, and
Wait 1 second though, but aren't you only concerned if this is going to be eaten by you?
Right.
Okay,
or a
but,
kid, right?
Okay, but so generally, you're not gonna get to the crumbs from your pockets.
Why not? I'll put a candy in my pocket on Pesach, and then I'll eat it at the park. And
so isn't it easier just not to put a candy in your pocket on Pesach than to
that's maybe a good idea. Also, no, but this is not Meshuggah. I'm saying this. The halacha is you have to make sure there's no chametz in your pockets. How many
pockets do you have?
I'm saying if you wash your clothes and you've turned, so and you. I'm saying, but how much? But you're talking about just the number of 5-6 clothes, changes of clothes. Just what they're going to wear on Pesach. Let me ask. I'll ask Rav Weiss. I don't want to go overboard. I'll ask Rav Weiss what he says about this.
Because when you wash it with detergent, I'm not going to drink detergent or boil up detergent.
No, I know, but a candy that goes through the wash is still edible, and
that's true.
That's for sure true.
But if we fold all the clothes,
you would eat a candy that went through a wash cycle.
But you would. It doesn't mean you would, but you technically can. If you know that you washed everything in the kid's closet, in everybody's closet, and the week before Pesach you fold everything and you just make sure
that there's nothing. So I'd like to ask about this. I'll double check about this.
I
only check coat packets properly, like you're saying, because
Right.
I know my kids and there's
They don't
nothing,
do it. Oh,
and
fine,
I
yeah.
wash everything that ever goes into my kid's closet, and then I'm the one who folds it.
Got it. Okay, so let me ask about this. I'll ask. I
If it went through the wash with a candy, when I'm folding it,
you'll know that it's there.
I'll
and
know
you'll-
that
you'll
it's
spot
there.
it. Gotcha. Okay, let me ask. I'll ask
But
about this.
generally,
Let's go
anything
through.
that's come through the wash, a dog will not eat, and no child or adult would eat it.
No, it's not true. It's true. Any a candy in a wrapper, anything like that.
I
goes-
think it's
a
a
candy
candy
in a
wrapper
wrapper
and a
and
child's
it looks
found
pretty
it.
intact.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What about a
I've had Tic Tacs that have gone through the wash. They still work.
My kid
Tic
picked up
Tac.
a gummy from the floor and asked me to wash it the other day.
There you go.
Like that he found on the way home from
What about a
God.
kid's
So,
school
like,
bag? Is it better
School
just
bags for
to-
sure. Yeah, I mean, you
is
should,
it-
yeah,
we
you should
should
sell
clean
them.
it or just
You should clean it anyway, but it's better to sell the school bags. And if you're going on if the question is a good question about a school bag, a knapsack for school. So it's like this: if a person, if you need it for Yantif because you're going on a trip somewhere and you need to take it with you, then you really have to clean it out very, very thoroughly because those also are like
School
chametz
bags.
traps, a school bag, a knapsack for school.
Oh, I watched
Yeah, you can put it through the wash or anything. But again, if you're not going to use it at all on Yantif, you're not going to use it over Pesach at all, and you could just sell it, and then you don't need to deal with it. But certainly, any bag, this is also important. Yeah, any luggage. There's also this happened to us one year. That we went away for the second days of Yom Tif, and we didn't think about this. We didn't, when we took out one of our suitcases, and I had a box in America, those pretzel sticks, those little thin pretzels. There's a whole box of those pretzel sticks in a suitcase that had been there from another time. We just didn't think to look there, and for now
I found in a
we're
zipper within a zipper once, and it was clearly there for Pesach, and I found like a piece of gum.
Yeah.
Like I never noticed that there was a zipper inside the zipper. I did.
You have to any luggage,
it was
any
a few
luggage
months
you may
later
use over
we-
Yom Tif, you have to go through
had
any
to, but-
handbags or pocketbooks or anything like that, knapsacks or whatever. Who knows what? Purse, whatever, all those things, handbags, all those things. Okay, so that's when it comes to. Now, when it comes to toys, so toys are again, you're not gonna you're looking for a candy bar or a candy or a that sandwich, right? That's in there. You are looking for those real things. But the other issue is with toys, which is the bigger issue, is again the thing that they can't eat chametz on Pesach, kids. And if you've got toys that are played with all year round. So then there's for sure chametz mixed in, and it's a part of them. So basically, the story is like this: any toy that's going to be used on Yantif has to be cleaned super well, which means that most of the toys, what we do most years, is most of the toys are locked away for Pesach. Most of the toys we put into a toy box or a closet, wherever it is, and we seal it off, and we take out the things that we're going to use. And this is like one of the kids' jobs. To put it in the bathtub or who knows what, to wash it very well. The toys that they're going to be using over Yantif. If you're talking about a big thing or a big car and there's no compartments to it, or obviously you look around, you see there's no chametz, that's fine. But things with like little pieces and little parts and things that pieces get in and open doors and all sorts of things like this. So it's very, very probable that there's chametz in these places. I mean, I know my littlest kid puts stuff everywhere all the time. So that's
Teddy bears.
So you just wash it like
Put it in the machine.
either wash it off or
I do that with all my kids.
it's not. There's no chametz in the teddy bear. I mean, the teddy. If you brush him off and there's no chametz there, that's fine.
I would think that
That's
there's
not,
more chametz in a teddy bear.
I'm talking
Then
about
there
one
would be
that's
in a
very
board
attached
game.
to them. That they
If
stick with them
you
in
checked
life,
it.
that
But what I mean is like
Like
scrub
my
it like
kids play
like-
Monopoly. My kids play Monopoly. It happens to be that I don't let them put it on the Shabbos table. I'm always like, okay, let's roll up the tablecloth.
right.
Because all
Right.
your
Okay, well, certainly on Pesach you shouldn't
But-
bring it to the table. I'm saying I don't let the kids bring any of the board games or anything like that to the table on Pesach, to the table where we eat. You know what I mean? Just because it's very hard to clean those things
No, but if you don't let
completely.
them do it throughout the year,
But yeah,
then
Mark
it's
put it
fine.
And they never
all
eat. They
year.
never eat by them at all.
Never.
Okay, yes,
Not
then
allowed.
that's fine. If you're sure that there's no chametz in the sure, the same
and
thing
then
with
I open the
Sfarim.
box before
And make sure,
Pesach.
yeah,
I
that's
see that
fine.
there's
That's
nothing.
totally fine. Same thing with Sfarim. I was going to talk about books. The same idea. You're not going to be over Bali or Bali Matzeh on books because there's never going to be a kazayas in a book. But a book that was ever brought to the table during the year is very possible, if not likely, that there'll be crumbs attached to it in it between the pages. So that book you can't bring to the table on Pesach. But if you're sitting on the on the couch, even if there would be crumbs and they would slip out and go onto the floor, that you don't have to think twice about it. But you can't bring it to the table. But if you're confident that your games are chametz free and there's no chametz that gets into them, then that's fine. But I was saying things like Lego and all these sets of things that people play with and kids play with, they bring to the table, they play on the floor, they play here and they play there. You really have to be more careful and wash off and go through it more carefully, make sure that there's nothing there. Okay, same thing. Books I just said. Any book that's ever brought to the table, you definitely shouldn't bring to the table on Pesach. If you want to or need to, let's say a sefer you read stories from it at the table or something like that. So then you have to read through it and flip through it and make sure there's no chametz inside or outside. But it's a good idea not to bring books like that to the table at on Pesach. Okay, I think that's it as far as cleaning is concerned. Like I said, kashering we're going to deal with separately. We spoke about your car. You have to make sure, right, all the different compartments in your car. You have to make sure the glove compartment, the arm thing, the trunk, all these places, people put stuff and we forget about it. Office, drawers, all these things we said, okay. Computer cases, things. Yeah, I think that's it for cleaning.
You don't go to work on Pesach, you need to clean your office.
You don't need to clean your office, but then you need to sell it. You need to sell your drawers or whatever.
Or
and
it's like a shared space.
But you don't have your own set of drawers or your own locker or your own anything. Not really. So, then you have to just make sure that there's no chametz there from before. But in any area that's like shaykh to you, even if it's not your ownership, you have to make sure that there's no chametz there. So the last time that you leave before you go, you should check everything around and make sure there's nothing there. Okay, should we stop now or should? Okay.